Chapter 38. They were in Daniel's office, and the distance between them felt like another presence in the room. Marius sat behind the desk, his expression tense, while Selena had collapsed into the chair across from him, silent and staring blankly ahead. Shera lingered in a darker corner, half hidden in the gloom, her arms crossed and her eyes fixed on the floor. She hadn't spoken a word since they arrived, and she didn't look at Andrew once. It had been like this ever since the waterfall. Shera had been avoiding him, slipping into the shadows whenever he drew near, her silence a shield he couldn't pierce. She had been so close to him that night, her breath hot on his throat, her body pressed to his, her hunger laid bare. But afterward, she had retreated into herself, as if she was afraid of what she'd almost done, of what they had almost done. It made him restless the way she wouldn't meet his eyes. The silence in the room was broken only by the sound of his pacing. Every few minutes, he rose from the couch, moved to the door, hovered like he might bolt, and then turned back to sit down, his frustration coiling tighter with every breath. He couldn't settle, couldn't stand the waiting or the way Shera wouldn't look at him. They had been waiting for over an hour. They'd come straight from the airport. Marius had insisted on seeing Daniel before they made any move. Daniel had promised he had important information, something that might save Carmen. But now he was late, and there was no word, no call, just silence. What if something had happened to him? Or worse, what if he'd betrayed them? Andrew dropped heavily into his seat again, his jaw clenched tight. Number they had to wait. Daniel was their only lead, the only one who might know how to get Carmen back. They couldn't let Kronos know they didn't have the Sphinx. It was the only thing keeping Carmen alive. But if something had gone wrong... What the hell is taking him so long? Shera burst out, her voice sharp as she shot up from her chair. Her sudden movement cut through the quiet like a blade. She had been so still for so long that her voice jolted Andrew, sending a spark of adrenaline through him. Her eyes flashed, her tension radiating in waves. She stalked toward the door, and he had to bite back the urge to follow her, to take her by the shoulders and demand she see him. "Where's Daniel?" "Why is he so late?" she snapped, her voice carrying a ragged edge he hadn't heard before. "He said he had to check something before he came," Marius said carefully, his own worry etched deep in the lines of his face. The room fell silent again, but the air felt tighter now, like a storm gathering strength. Andrew sat unmoving, his eyes on Shera. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, every line of her body tense. She might be trying to keep her distance from him, but he could feel her anger, the way she was just barely holding herself together. Then footsteps echoed from the main hall, heavy, hurried. Shera straightened, and Andrew stood too, his heart pounding in his chest. They went out. In the middle of the large club room stood a group of vampires, dressed in black, armed and grim. Shera recognized them as hunters and council guards. But what were they doing here? Then she saw Daniel, slumped on a couch, blood soaking his chest, his right arm torn and slick with red. Around him the others bore signs of battle, wounds, burns, shredded clothes. Whatever had happened, it had been bad. "Daniel," Shera whispered, her voice catching as she rushed forward. Andrew clenched his fists at his sides. He watched her kneel beside Daniel, her hand brushing his shoulder with gentle urgency. She didn't touch him that way. She didn't look at him like that, like he was the only thing that mattered in that moment. He knew it was stupid. Daniel was her friend, but it still burned. "What happened?" Marius demanded, moving to stand over them. Before Daniel could speak, Michelle appeared from the hallway, her eyes going wide with horror. "God, Daniel! What happened to you?" she cried. "I'm fine," he said, his voice ragged as he forced himself upright. "We need to close the bar tonight. Can you handle it?" "Daniel," Michelle started to protest. "Go," he said, cutting her off. "I'll explain later." She hesitated, her gaze drifting to Shera as if she wanted to say more, something Andrew was afraid to hear. But she turned away at last and disappeared behind the curtain. Daniel's face tightened. "Things are worse than I thought," he said hoarsely. "The Asharis breached the nest." "The council?" Marius asked, his voice sharp with dread. "Barely got them out," Daniel said. "We were already leaving when they attacked. If it weren't for her, we might not have managed to get out." He nodded toward a hooded hunter standing apart from the others. The woman stepped forward and pulled back her hood. Shira froze. "Erica," she breathed, "what are you doing here?" "Trying to make up for lost time," Erica said, her voice low and hard. Shira didn't answer, but her expression said everything. She knew who Erica was talking about. Craven. "So you know?" she asked quietly. "After you vanished, Sakura's men started spreading rumors that you'd joined Kronos. Craven didn't deny it. Instead, he backed the story. Marius disappeared too. No one knew what to believe. Gabe was the only one who stood up for you. And they locked him up for it, said he was your accomplice." Shera's jaw tightened. "When the council meeting went ahead as planned, I started to suspect," Erica said. "Soren took over security after Marius left, but it was weak. Too weak. So I snuck into the dungeons to Gabe. He told me he believed Craven was a traitor." "She didn't contact me until tonight," Daniel cut in. "Right after your call, Craven had returned and sent most of the hunters to track you down. I called, worried about the council members. With most of the hunters gone, the nest was unprotected. When Kronos attacked, the hunters inside didn't stand a chance." "Where are they now?" Marius asked, his voice low and urgent. "They're safe. One of my old hideouts," Daniel said. "Guarded for now, but the Asharis, there were too many. I don't know how Kronos gathered them all without us knowing, without me knowing." "Do you know where Ignatius is?" Shera asked, her voice tight. Andrew felt her tension like a thread stretched to breaking. She called him by his old name, her pain raw and visible. "No," Daniel said. "After Marius left, I reached out to every contact I had. Nothing. We assumed Kronos would come back when he thought you had the Sphinx. But he's vanished." "Maybe he's hiding," Andrew said, his voice low. He hated the way Shera's eyes snapped to Daniel, searching for answers in him. Daniel shook his head. "He's here. Craven's return proves it. If Marius was right about the Sphinx." "You told him?" Selene turned sharply to Marius. He nodded once. "And he did the right thing," Daniel said. "It gave me a chance to plan. If Kronos is here, we need to act fast." "He must suspect something," Andrew said suddenly, his voice rising. He could feel Shera's unease beside him. He couldn't stand the idea of Kronos hurting Carmen. Selena spoke softly, her voice cutting through the room. "We'll make the exchange." Silence fell. Everyone stared at her. "Are you sure?" Marius asked quietly. "If you go through with this, you'll have to do it yourself." "I know," she said. Marius's breath caught. Only a keeper could touch the Sphinx. At least that's going to be the pretense. He wanted to protest, to tell her it was too dangerous, but he swallowed the words. He could see it in her eyes. She wasn't going to back down.